Halloween, 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 happy, happy Halloween, 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 happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
It's almost time, kids. The clock is ticking. Be in front of your TV sets for the Horathon. And remember the big giveaway at 9.
What's up, movie buffs? Greg Rowe Show movie reviews. Well, the other day I gave my opinion and breakdown in a video on the Halloween series that had to do with Michael Myers. Those 11 movies, in which one I thought was the worst movie of the series and which one I thought was the best. Broke down each movie as to why I felt that way. So if you're interested in that, you can see that on the channel right now. In that video, I said that I did not include Halloween 3's Season of the Witch. And the reason I did not is because I view this movie as a standalone movie, even though it's labeled Halloween 3. And if you buy the box set or whatever, it's in there and it's included in the series and it's part of the series. To me, it's just really hard to take a movie like this that doesn't have Michael Myers in it, that doesn't have the same storyline, the same characters, and sort of put that together with movies that do. It's just, to me, like unfair, or it just doesn't make sense in my brain to try and rank that movie amongst movies that have Michael Myers in it and say, well, it's better than these movies and it's worse than it's just hard for me to do that. So I've always looked at this as a standalone, even though the title is included in the Halloween series. So before I get started, I think in sort of talking to people and reading comments and watching videos and talking to people in general, I think the biggest problem that people have is the fact that it's labeled Halloween 3, right? This is a series about Michael Myers, about these characters, about this storyline, and then all of a sudden in the middle, you just have this random movie thrown in that has nothing to do with either. And I think it irritates a lot of people. People are confused by it. They don't understand it, and therefore they don't like the movie. And they don't give the movie a real look, right? They don't judge the movie based upon what the movie actually is and how it's put together and the script and the acting and the story. They just judge it, based upon the label of it being called Halloween 3. And so whether fair or unfair, I've always been of the personal opinion that had you removed Halloween 3 from the title and just called it Season of the Witch, not many people would have a problem with it, and it would be generally looked at as a much better movie than most people look at it as. So I wanted to kind of give this movie its own kind of video and breakdown because I think it deserves it, and B, because I can't, in my own mind, include it in the Halloween Michael Myers breakdown. So getting into this movie, again, this movie has nothing to do with Michael Myers, and the background sort of this movie was Halloween was originally supposed to just be a standalone movie. It wasn't supposed to spin, sequels and become this 43-year-long thing. But as we know, with certain things, if it catches on with fans, especially horror fans are very, very, very passionate. They're very dedicated. They're very loyal. That some of these movies, like, the Nightmare on Elm Streets and the Halloweens and the Texas Chainsaw Massacres and the Screams and all these kind of things, end up spawning sequels and end up lasting, for a long period of time because horror fans are so passionate. They love these characters. They love, these slashers. They love, how these movies are put together. And again, they're just really passionate, loyal people who are going to show up, who are going to pay their money, who are going to support no matter what. And to me, that's really kind of rare in the movie industry. You don't really have, a group of people that's like, oh, I'm going to, every movie that's a drama that comes out, I'm going to go support it. Or every action movie that comes out, I'm going to support it. Or, every comedy that comes out, I'm going to go watch it. Horror movie fans are a little bit different in that aspect. And I think that's what makes, the horror community, horror fans, the horror genre a little bit unique and different than the other ones. So it wasn't supposed to spin any sequels. It was so highly successful that they did Halloween 2 a couple years later. It picks up right where, Halloween, the original, ends. And then Michael Myers is supposed to die at the end of it. It wasn't supposed to be anymore. So they had this idea to continue the series, but sort of make movies that, were centered around Halloween or Halloween stories, and just kind of make different entries in the series. So, for example, Halloween 3 would be Season the Witch, and Halloween 4 might have been, something to do with a scarecrow, or, Halloween, 5 could have been, something to do with, an actual witch, or, a vampire or something. The idea was to do that. And then when Halloween 3 came out, it wasn't really liked and really popular, so they were like, okay, scratch that. And that's why, in 1988, some, 6 years later, they came out with Halloween 4 entitled The Return of Michael Myers, because they realized the audience didn't really like that concept. They really liked the Michael Myers character, and so they decided to go back to that, and the rest is history. So, getting into this movie, Tom Atkins is in it. He's, a horror icon, creep show. I mean, The Fog, the list goes on, right, of the movies that this guy's in. He's really, really loved in the horror community, and for good reason. I think he's a great actor. I'm a really, really big fan of him personally. Creep Show is one of my all-time favorite horror movies, and he's just so good as the prick dad in that. Just a fantastic actor. So this movie, the premise of this movie is, it starts out with this guy kind of running, on a street under, a bridge late at night, and there's a car chasing him, and he's hiding, and it's this car that's following him, and there's, there ends up being these guys in suits that, are trying to kill him, and then he ends up, at this gas station, where this gas station attendant ends up taking him to the hospital, saying he's acting weird and all this stuff, and in his hand he has this like clenched latex pumpkin mask, and he's saying, they're coming, they're going to kill us all type thing. Tom Atkins plays a doctor in it, and while, this guy is in the hospital, one of those guys in the suits comes in and actually kills him, and the nurse comes in as he's, finishing the job and screams, and Tom Atkins chases him out into the parking lot, and his car explodes, and so the guy's daughter shows up the next day to verify the body, and she's really curious about what happened to her dad. And so she's explaining to Tom Atkins' character that, I'm not going to go home until I figure out what happened to my dad, right? So Tom Atkins decides to go with her. They go to this small town that these masks are being made in by Shamrock Novelties. And this town is basically controlled by this guy, Cochran, who runs the factory. He knows what's going on. He has cameras everywhere. There's like a curfew. Like, he controls this small town, right? So they check into a hotel. They're kind of trying to figure out what's going on. There's a mysterious death of a lady next door. Cochran, all his people show up and they grab her, and he's like, hey, I'm a doctor. What's going on? And Cochran's like, oh, we're going to take her to, the factory. She's going to get the best care. And he just thinks that's sort of weird, right? Well, he runs into this bum on his way back from the liquor store, and he kind of tells him, some weird stuff about Cochran and the town. And then, a few minutes later in the movie, those guys in suits show up and kill this kind of homeless person. And then, Tom Atkins' character goes with the guy who died's daughter to the factory the next day. They meet, the top salesman who's in town to tour the factory, and they sort of get a tour of things, and they're asking questions because they think something weird is up. They ask to go into, the final processing stage, and Cochran tells them that they can't. And then as they're leaving, she spots, her dad's station wagon actually in a garage in the Shamrock factory, and goes up to see what's going on. And then the guys come in line in front of her, and she can't do it, right? So from this point on, Cochran knows that they're on to something, that they know something is going on. So he's keeping a really big eye on them. They decide to, take some information and try and get out of there. And then, the people, who work for Cochran come, they kidnap her, they take her back to the factory, and Tom Atkins' character has to go in, break in, try and save her. They know he's there because they have cameras everywhere. He's able to escape. And then, he walks through this thing with Cochran, as Cochran's showing him a tour of everything. And what ends up happening is that they steal one of the rocks from Stonehenge. And so Stonehenge is supposed to have this like mystical power. And what they do is they use the power to program these chips in the on the tags and these masks that kids are going to wear, and it literally just like it kills everybody when they put them on and they play this weird kind of funky commercial, and like everybody starts having like snakes and cockroaches and spiders and stuff coming out of their head. It's actually pretty creepy and pretty effective. And so that's Cochrane's plan, is that he's gonna, sell all these masks, distribute all these masks, and he's actually going to, kill all the people that wear these masks. And that's, he's the villain in the movie instead of it being Michael Myers. And Tom Atkins' character ends up, dropping all of these chips, and this magnetic force like kills all these guys. And what we end up finding out is these guys who are working for Cochrane are not actually people at all. They're actually robots that he has built because he wants people who are loyal, who are going to listen to him. He doesn't want to have to deal with the human element of people thinking for themselves and kind of getting his secret out, right? So Tom Atkins thinks that he's wiped out everything, that everything's good to go. He grabs his lady friend from the factory. They start making a getaway, and then all of a sudden she starts grabbing him at the throat and all this stuff, and he ends up wrecking the car and finding out that they turned her into a robot. So he has to take a tire iron and behead her, and then he's running as fast as he can and he ends up at the same gas station in the beginning of the movie, and he calls the the TV station and says, "Hey, you guys have got to stop playing this commercial. If you play this commercial, people are going to die. It's people's lives that are on the line." They sort of don't believe him at first, but then they on the TV he's watching, in the gas station, this broadcast comes up that it's been delayed, and then he flips the next channel, it's been delayed, and then it goes to the third channel and it's still playing and it's still beeping, and he's like, "You got to turn it off. For the love of God, you got to turn it off. No!" Right? And then that's how the movie ends. So he isn't able to actually stop Cochrane's plan after all. This movie is very effective. This movie is very creepy. The soundtrack for this movie, the sounds that they use, the way that they sort of put this together and they create this kind of weird atmosphere. Even though Michael Myers is not in this movie and it isn't about that, the way that they establish the characters, the way that they sort of, have this town controlled by Cochrane and these, robots, and this idea of these masks, basically melting people's heads, is really effective. It's really creepy. The music that goes along with it is super creepy. It's as creepy as anything that's in any of the other Halloween movies. And personally, I think the acting, the script, the way this movie is put together, I think is as good as anything in the series, personally. I think this is an excellent horror movie. I'm a huge fan of it. Is it a top 10 all-time horror movie? No. Is it a top 20 all-time horror movie? No. But would it be in that next range? Like, could you put it in the 21 to 30 range? For me, absolutely you could. I think it is that good. I think it is that effective. And I think it's a really, really quality movie. So if you haven't seen Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, please check it out. I think you will thoroughly enjoy it. If you go into the movie knowing that you're not going to see Michael Myers and it has nothing to do with that storyline, and you just watch it for a standalone movie and the concept and the idea of what it is and what it's trying to accomplish, I think you will thoroughly enjoy it and you'll come out a fan of this movie, much as I am. There's a couple cool little tidbits in the movie, like when Tom Atkins' character gets captured. They put him in this room and they turn on the TV, and Halloween 1978 is playing on TV, right? So there's all these little kind of things that they do to kind of subtly throw it back to the original Halloween and kind of tie it in a little bit, which I thought was really cool, like little Easter eggs, which was kind of fun. So if you enjoy, really good 80s horror and you enjoy a different idea, right? This movie is a different idea. There's not really something else like this out there, right? There's no horror movie or horror concept or anything that is quite like this. It's unique in that aspect. If you enjoy that kind of thing, I highly suggest you check out Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Watch it with an open mind. Watch it for what it is, and I think you'll be thoroughly impressed and you'll enjoy the movie as I do. So that's my opinion. That's my breakdown of that movie. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down. Subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think of the movie in the comment section below. Do you like this movie? Do you not like this movie? Did you not like this movie and then have grown to like this movie? You know, I'm curious to hear what people think about this movie, because you run into a lot of people that either hate it or like it. There's not really an in between with this movie. So I'm curious to see what the fans think of this movie. So until the next one, I'm out of here.